everybody. My name is Ali Arena. My background is in educational psychology, speech therapy, and behavior analytics. But what I really love is all things social, how to handle kind of like quirky language sometimes, how to help children make better friendships, how to navigate friendships, all of that. That is my favorite stuff to talk about. And I found out about social thinking, which is sort of just a form of therapy that you can use. I always use it in supplements with other things. Probably like 10 years ago. It's not a few years ago. And I've been using parts of it in therapy for a long time. And I really like it because it's just functional. It's a lot about what's really happening in language. And then I really like to talk to families about improv because we all can model being flexible, right? And going with the flow. And it's just a nice way to kind of have some tools to know that you could do that. Okay, so let's go to our next slide. So social thinking, what it is it's literally what we do when we interact with others. And that is really weird that it typed it twice. I'm so sorry about that. I will edit that for everybody. But it literally is what we do, right? We are always social thinking when we're in conversation. So what I mean by that is, as I'm talking, you're all looking at me. Some of you are nodding your head. Like I can see that you're giving me social cues. You're listening. You're seeing like, oh, does what she's saying even apply to my child or my life, right? That's social thinking. I'm just constantly taking in what's happening. It's how we think about others and how we determine who they are in our life. So if you think about your life, you probably have acquaintances, friends, family, right? And you treat all of those people differently based on how close you are and sort of what you're allowed to say to them. We can't go yell at a librarian, right? I give kids that example pretty often. And then it's also how we figure out how to talk to and what not to talk about. Again, so there are certain topics that you just can't talk about with people. Like I work with a student now who is constantly divulging his parents' secrets. And they're not big, it's nothing bad. He's not, but it's just stuff I shouldn't know. Like mommy yelled at daddy because he's eating way too many sweets and he's getting fat. Like I shouldn't know that, right? So just stuff on like what we can say and what we can't say. Okay, and then it's also how we react to our words, behaviors, and ideas. So I know everyone has experienced this. You've had an idea before, but you didn't necessarily act on it because you might have had impulse control, right? Or you've thought something about someone, but you didn't really say it. You had an idea. So again, social thinking is sort of how you're regulating yourself in conversation and what you're picking up on other people. That's important. And then when you start to do that, when you start to say, okay, I'm going to learn about this person, I'm going to think about myself, I'm able to modify what we say and how we act based on other people's reactions. So a big thing that I do with the students I work with is talk to them about, okay, let's say you're talking to me and I start just like going like this and I look so bored and so I talk to them about like, how would you modify what you're doing? Would you keep talking about Minecraft for another 20 minutes? Or would you maybe say, Ali, did you want to talk about something else? Did you have a question? Are you bored, right? But to do that, you would first have to notice my reaction. So social thinking, again, helps people identify what is the other person showing? What am I doing with my body and how are they interpreting it? And then how do we do this talking thing in between? Okay. So then I'm just going to move our faces so I can see the whole slide. So sorry if I look like I'm doing something interesting on the screen. Okay, so social thinking is what we do even when we don't interact with others. And what I mean by that is we're constantly taking in the world, right? We're either watching TV shows, movies, YouTube, video games. We're always taking things in. So I tell families to use those, meaning, okay, let's say I have a lot of kids right now, and I'm in Los Angeles, so this might not be as popular in Australia, but a lot of kids on Netflix are watching this show called Malibu 911. And it's kind of like a bunch of teenagers that are lifeguards in Malibu. And there's typical teenage drama, right? There's like the cool kids, these kids are the not as cool kids, and there's all this drama. So I use this show a lot for parents to talk about with their kids, right? To use it and say like, hey, do you understand why that bully is laughing? Because a lot of the times the kids that I work with don't, they kind of miss it. They're just laughing because other people are, right? So we can always be trying to explain the social world more explicitly, even when we're doing something like watching a show. I actually really like shows with laugh tracks, because like Friends or Boy Meets World, because I noticed a lot of the young adults I work with, like I was saying, would just laugh, but they didn't actually know why it was funny. And a lot of the times is jokes are funny because there's a history, right? Like we laugh at Rachel in Friends because she's always ridiculous and talking about shopping. But if you just looked at her in one scene, it's not as funny. So again, teaching our kids and our students to think about how someone's history can sometimes play into why something's funny and what we can learn about them socially. So it's same things, looking at reading books, characters, the movies, the plots, just trying to break down what's happening here. Social thinking even happens when we're waiting in the lunch line, we're at the library, we're picking our nose, right? If I'm picking my nose, I'm unintentional. Well, I guess maybe unintentionally, because I think no one's looking. I'm saying to people, hey, I'm comfortable picking my nose, or I'm dirty, kind of, right? A lot of the students that I work with, to them, they're like, but I had a booger and I picked my nose. Why is that about anyone else? But really, even though your action wasn't meant to signify I'm dirty, it's showing people that. So again, helping them see that their actions can get interpreted, even if they don't want them. They didn't think they were going to be. The waiting in the lunch line, I always bring up, because one of the students I work with, he was always like, I want friends. I just want friends so bad. Like, no one wants to be my friend. He was so upset. And so we started talking about his day, and it was pretty apparent that he kind of just stood with his head down reading a book at all times. So either at a table, in the lunch line, in homeroom. And so I had to explain to him, you're actually giving the signal, like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm really into my book. And he was under the assumption that someone would come up to him and ask him about the book. He was like, I don't understand why no one's asking me about this. So these little things that might seem super obvious to us, it's really helpful to just be curious and ask a lot of questions. And I know there's such a debate on video games or not video games. And I totally hear that. I don't think we should be on screens all day. But even Minecraft, like, I've gotten so much information from the kids I work with, because they'll explain it to me and I still won't get it. And the reason I don't get it is they're explaining it from the way they play the game, not the whole context of what this game means or how you get to the finish line or anything like that, right? They'll just explain their experience. So using something like that, you can ask them a lot of questions to help them start to think, oh, just because I'm having this thought and this experience doesn't mean other people are. And it doesn't mean they can fill in that information. So it's helping them see, again, like, there's more perspectives and people need more information. Social thinking is also when I'm sure we've all thought this to ourselves in our head, right? Are we talking too much? Are we talking too little? Are we not on topic? Are we being self-centered? Are we being repetitive? Are we not acknowledging and acknowledging and commenting? Oh my goodness, lost words there. And are we making smart guesses? So a smart guess is, let's say I was sitting here and I had my phone, I had my keys, and I've asked students before, like, what do you think that's saying to you? And a smart guess might be, oh, you're ready to leave, right? You have to go to your car, it's time to go. A not smart guess, which I've totally gotten, is you really want to buy a new car, So you're holding your keys, so you can think about cars in the future, right? So see how like just teaching them something like, I'm seeing something that people do over and over. What does that mean? Or if I'm holding, I do this sometimes, I'll just hold water and I'll be like, what do you think I'm about to do? Most of them will say, oh, you want to take a drink of water. But some are like, I don't know, you're just holding your water. Like they're not seeing that there's an intention with action. So again, just helping break down these small things. It's being really curious, because what I notice is the older a kid gets, even if they miss social cues all along, there's still this assumption like there's no way they're missing that. Like they must understand these somewhat like simple things. And a lot of times it's really helpful to sit there and break it down with them. Sometimes for commenting and acknowledging, I'll do an activity called ask versus tell. So I have a lot of students who are tellers. They want to tell me everything. They give me all the information about their interests, which I'm normally genuinely interested in getting all that information. Or I have students who ask me a ton. So like, Allie, what did you do this weekend? Okay, who was there? What kind of dog do you have? How old's your dog? Has your dog ever eaten, I don't know, a specific dog food, right? They'll just ask. So conversation though is a back and a forth. So a lot of times I'll literally write down on a piece of paper, like I'll tally for them how many questions they asked me and how many times they just said something like, oh, I noticed you're wearing glasses today. I actually had a student do that today and it made me so happy. He like noticed I don't normally wear glasses. He noticed it. He commented. But just again, helping kids know like that you can't just always tell what you want to do, what you're interested in, and you can't just only ask questions. There's a back and a forth with that. Are there any questions? I just want to stop and see everyone's face because I know I'm saying a lot. So did anyone have a specific question? They can put it in the chat or come off, whatever works. Yeah, go ahead, Ella.
I'm just wondering how a parent would know if their kiddo might be struggling with social thinking. What are some telltale signs they could look for?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I probably should have started with that. So again, these are going to be kids that you're hearing maybe comments from parents like they're not having as many play dates with them, or they're getting sent home for something. So I was just talking to someone and her son got sent home because to him, you always use goggles when swimming. And so I guess at school with COVID, they weren't allowing you to use goggles. And he was so upset. He ended up hitting someone. He cursed at his teacher. Like he really had a hard time. So kids who you're like, you seem fine. And then this is happening. Like you're having a huge reaction over something I wouldn't think would be a big deal. Also, I would say any kid who's struggling with a really good sign that social thinking is hard is someone who struggles a lot with reading and writing, meaning like they have a really hard time telling a story with the perspective of the other person. That's a really good indication. Yeah. Oops, someone was just in the waiting room and then they popped out. Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't miss them. Any other questions? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to, oh yeah, go ahead, Blanca. Oh, I think you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. I had to make a phone call, so I only just joined in as you started recording. It's really interesting. This is the first time I've seen you explaining the perspective where they might not be able to, they're laughing, but because I've noticed both my kids are suspected to be on the spectrum. My son is diagnosed with several things. My daughter, I'm trying to get her diagnosed before she turns 7, so we can get her help. But they're very, very different. And I've noticed that with my daughter, she rambles and she talks, but there's no direction. Whereas my son, he's like the example you just gave, that he goggles. He has to have, if you go swimming, you have to have goggles.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone says no, he absolutely flips his lid and goes berserk. And it's like you said, it's trying to explain that, it's hard for him because he's very what's the word? Moral orientated.
Yes.
He has to stick to the rules. My daughter's the complete opposite.
Right.
So I just want to say thank you, because it's given me a more of a different approach to approach both my kids, rather than not knowing what to do with my daughter and putting all my eggs in one basket with my son. So I thank you for that.
Well, good. No, I'm happy that's helpful. And I think you brought up a really good point. I like social thinking a lot too, because a lot of the kids we work with, and I'm sure people can relate to this, it's that black and white, like this or that, and very, I like how you said moral thinking, because I have a lot of kids who are just like, no, that person is dumb if they actually think, the world is flat or something, right? Like that's a little extreme, but it's really hard for them to understand how you could possibly have a different perspective, especially on something that's supposed to be an obvious rule. So I really like this too, because it's within the program, like we really talk about perspective, and we talk a lot about, the difference between being right and also just wanting to connect with someone. That's higher level. I would do that more with like a 20-year-old, but there's a difference there, right? Like we can all do this, even probably in our romantic relationships. We can either be like right, or we can try to get to a collaborative place. So social thinking also looks at that. Let me see, what slide was I on? Okay. So we're gonna get into some activity ideas. Okay. So like I've been saying, one of the big things in social thinking is perspective taking. So literally just the thought that my thoughts are not the same as other people's. And that sounds kind of basic and maybe obvious, but I really found a lot of the students I work with, it's not. They genuinely didn't know that. It's not from a place of self-centeredness. It's not that they just truly didn't understand that another person's brain wouldn't see the exact same situation in the same way, probably due to the fact that they have black and white thinking, right? So it should be the same. So one, even helping them see that people have different thoughts is really important. And then this really matters for when you're making any group plan or group work. So a lot of students I work with, even younger, older, they'll start just changing the activity, and they've never made it known that they want to change this, right? They never let anyone know, oh, now, if we're doing pretend play, now we're going to the vet. So then someone comes in and they're still on the shopping mall scheme, and this kid is upset now because it's like, no, you're not doing what you're supposed to. So we talk a lot about forming whatever the group plan is and getting on the same page about this. So this same thing could be applied to, we're going away on holiday. And I've heard this from a lot of parents. A child will just assume, well, last time I was on the airplane, I got to watch like 8 hours of movies. Well, this flight's only 6, and they already planned out that they're watching 4 TV shows. So you just really disrupted that. So it's, again, going over what is the plan for this and what works for everyone in the group. Additionally, like traveling, if we're all in a group, we have to follow what everyone in the group is doing. I've heard from a lot of parents too, like they take their child to the airport and their kids over at the bathroom or checking out. A lot of kids I work with love the conveyor belt. So they went to go see that with the suitcases and didn't check in, and they've left the group. So again, talking about what a group is and what is the plan. So problem solving and flexibility, all this is setting up activities where they do have to problem solve, right? So let's say we're at the airport and we're supposed to go to Terminal 5, but it's closed. We have to go to Terminal 6 and we have to walk back around, right? We still have to fly to Terminal 5, but that entrance is closed. How can we solve this? So going over plans with them, I think it's just really important to over communicate with your child if they tend to have black and white thinking or predisposition to be a little anxious about change. Again, what are ways we can do this together and coming up with a plan around it? I just wanted to touch upon, I think most people here have probably heard the term executive functioning, but social thinking activities, again, are really good for executive functioning. And what that means is it's our planning, right? It's our planning and organizing centers. And if you tend to only plan, when you're in isolation and you're on your own, right? So if you make your to-do list on your own in the morning and don't consider the fact that like traffic happens, your family might need something from you. You might not be able to get to a place that you thought, you're going to get really frustrated. So again, helping your child, talking with them about what is their expectation. Let's see how we can fit in the times and helping them understand how long something's going to take. That is a skill. I work a lot with young adults, and that's a skill they really struggle with. So using stuff like, I know Autism 360 talks about this a lot, but visual timers, making time as visual as humanly possible, and even talking with them about, oh, look, that took 30 minutes. So it took you 30 minutes to do that. So maybe next time you do math homework, we'll only sit for 30 minutes because that's how long it took you. Another thing that's part of social thinking and activity that I do pretty often is setting up what's expected and unexpected. And I normally try to be funny and go like extreme. So again, if we're at the airport, I might be like, what's something unexpected to do at the airport? And that would be to like scream bomb, right? That would be really bad. No one should do that unless that's actually happening. So that would be the extreme, right? Of this is super unexpected. It would result in consequences that aren't good. So again, just helping them see like, okay, what are things that I can't do at an airport as well? I can't really like scream. That might be, I can't walk away from my family. I can't necessarily get up and go to the bathroom when I want on the airplane. I have to wait for the seatbelt sign to change, right? And then what are some expected behaviors? It's expected that you're going to get to watch TV for 3 hours straight, which is awesome. How often do you get to do that, right? Or it's expected that you get to pick a snack on the airplane, whatever that is, helping kids understand the unexpected and the expected. And again, this is all just trying to go back to making things as literal, concrete as possible, so they're able to then make a decision around what works for them, right? And you can have a conversation about it, as opposed to they made the decision, they have a plan, and then you aren't following the plan and they're very upset, or the teacher didn't follow the plan they thought was going to happen and they're very upset. Looking at function and context. So this one can be a little, this is a little higher level, but you know, like it's, if you maybe whined when you were younger, you might have gotten attention, right? So the function of whining is you got attention, you were younger. If I put the context on you're 16 and whining, you're going to get attention, but you're going to get attention in the way of people are going to be like, what's wrong with you, right? And it's a different type of attention. So, but for some of the kids I work with, attention's just attention. So they're not seeing that their behaviors become a different function. Like, yeah, they got attention, but they're not getting the attention they were looking for, and that the context was different. And then, like Ella had brought up before, she was asking what is a good student that might really benefit from social thinking. And again, it's a lot of kids who are struggling with that academic, like I have one student right now, they're on word problems in math. And to understand a word problem, you have to kind of understand the context of like, they're going from this place to this place, it takes this long. So I have to be able to imagine these two places and sift through what's important. So that's also sometimes really difficult for our kids, right? Like, what actually matters about this paragraph? I don't need to memorize the whole paragraph. I have to figure out what's important. And this is something I would do kind of repetitively with a student to help them understand what's important. Because if I just give them a direction, like do this word problem, that can be really hard, right? Well, what do you mean? Like, how do I do it? Like, do you need me to highlight what's important? Do I have to show my work? Can I just give you my answer? Can I verbally tell you? Do I have to write it again? So you can add in what's expected and unexpected for academic assignments so they understand. Okay. So last thing is, I kind of talked about this as well, but just at home, I love using videos, pictures even from when they were younger, and you're having them sort of tell a story about that or seeing if they remember things. It's just another really good way to get the social language going. Also, what do we talk about socially? What we've done and what we like. So helping kids and reminding them, oh yeah, I actually do have stuff to talk about. They hear that so much from my teenagers. Well, I'm boring or I'm lonely. And I'm like, you're not boring at all. You tell me cool things every time we talk that I'm genuinely interested in. So I have something called like a friend file for each of the students that I work with. And I write down all the things that I know about them and that I think are really cool and fun topics. And I keep that for them so they have a reference if they're ever like, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. I also have them do that for me. So they all have, I just call them Alley files. I'm sure there could be a better name, but something simple like they know that I'm a woman. They also know that I just got married and I have a dog, right? So now if they want it, they can ask me questions about my dog. They also know that I like elephants. So they could ask me questions about elephants. I also do an activity with them where I might say, what do you know about a person just by looking at them or looking in their environment? Like I have a lot of pictures. And I often do that because I actually have a little elephant tattoo and a lot of them never ever notice it. And then once they do, they go, oh, that means you like elephants. So a lot of people have these little cues that they're not thinking to look for. So again, a picture, like a still frame, is a really good way for them to talk about stuff they've done, learn more about people in their life just by looking at them. And I also really like the freeze frame video. Okay, so you're watching a show, any show they like, and you're stopping it and asking your child, what is his face telling you? Right? So like, I'm thinking of Friends again. They're all very animated actors. They're always doing big things with their face, their hands. You're trying to get at what are the nonverbal cues these people are giving, right? And then you could even take it a step further. What information can you gather about these people? So if they're all sitting in a coffee shop, we know they like coffee. We might know they live in New York, right? So helping them in just one part really quick of the show they're watching, take it and dissect what's happening. And I would suggest doing that if you can daily, but just keep it short. So they're not like, oh, mom and dad are going to come pause my show and I'm going to have to explain it to them. Just really short and quick. And then the other thing to think about is a lot of kids don't actually know how to email or text or do note taking. This is another area I'd really say that it's important to like think about explicitly talking about and using some of those principles of social thinking. Like, can my child take perspective and do they understand what the other person's thinking? Does my child know what's expected and unexpected in these instances? Does my child have a script they can go back to and think about of ways to email, right? So just thinking about all these things to make it easier. Another thing I have a lot of the people I work with do is start getting really familiar with the weather app. So again, social thinking is being aware of your world. So many kids I work with have no idea what the weather is going to be. How are they going to feel? But like by 15, we want them to be able to look at a weather app and maybe get dressed for what's going to be appropriate for the day, right? Or if they're making plans over the weekend and it's going to torrentially downpour all weekend, that's not going to work if they wanted to go hiking. So again, just having them get familiar with looking at something like this. So they're just aware daily of, oh, that's the weather today. It's a simple skill, but I've really seen it help a lot of students. Okay, so I wanted to go over an activity. Let's say we're going to go bowling. Okay. And when you think about bowling, you're kind of like, all right, let's just go bowling. But actually, there's a lot that happens in bowling. You typically have to order food, right? So you might have to go over, well, how do I even order food? How do I order the shoes? What is my shoe size, right? These are ways to help to prepare your child. So it's not just like I get there and I'm like, I think I'm bowling. How do you handle if there's people in the other lane and maybe they're in your way, right? What's lane etiquette? Are you allowed to be stepping into the other person's lane? How do you ask for help if you need it, right? Who would you even go to if you needed help? Do you go back to the front desk? Do you ask your friend? Hygiene. Okay, so I used to do bowling outings all the time, and some of the kids I worked with had like black socks. They were so dirty, right? And I am so not blaming the families. I can so see these kids being like, I am not changing these socks. But what was really nice is all these kids were super close, and I was able to show them like, dude, they think you're dirty. They don't want to, they're like grossed out by these socks, right? So what hygiene is going to be revealed? People are going to see your socks. People, if you maybe have stinky feet, might smell them, right? Also, what do you want to wear in a bowling alley? Bowling alleys can get kind of hot, right? So maybe you're wearing a jacket that you could take off. You don't want to wear, I did a bowling one time and I had a student wear like really, really, really tight leggings and they ripped. And they were mortified, obviously. So just again, but these seem simple, but thinking about how all these activities come together and how much money do you need to go bowling? Like, what do you need? How do you pay? The last thing is too, so I've noticed a lot when kids go bowling, they don't really say their name up there. Like, it's not like Allie's Bowling. They normally do like a funny name. So sometimes I'll rehearse with a kid, what's a funny name that we could use for you, right? And have them be ready so they're not on the spot. And then I also talk about though, well, what if you get there and everyone just uses their real name? Should you use the funny name or your real name? So again, just prepping them for what could be happening. And all of this is one, to help them take in their environment and understand that there are so many little cues that are happening all the time. But two, it reduces a lot of anxiety. So again, I work with a ton of young adults that their anxiety, they really, really talk about their anxiety of doing things new because they don't understand how it's supposed to work, and they're scared they might look stupid or they might do something wrong, or so just breaking it down. And then I'm going to go into this with improv, but as always, like, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does something kind of weird once in a while, right? I talked to them a lot about that. Like, people don't typically remember if you ask them a silly question. They get over that. So I also try to diminish anxiety in that way. Okay, so another thing, how I was kind of talking about noticing nonverbal cues, right? If we're watching a show, is I really like stuff. These are just easy activities. So I teach a lot of kids thumbs up or thumbs down because they can do it kind of subtly to me. And it just takes off the cognitive load of having to say like, I like this, I don't like this. Like, they can just really subtly tell me it. I love having kids make silly emotion faces in the mirror very innocently so they can learn what their face looks like when they're making an emotion, right? So we'll really exaggerate them and then I'll try to get them as natural as possible. Because I still have some kids, I'm like, are you feeling happy? And they go, yeah, I'm really happy, because they've seen that on a movie or something and they thought that was the way to show happy. And it's not that that's bad. It's just, it's going to draw attention to them that they might not want, because they might not actually be, you know, level 20 happy. They might just be feeling okay. I like this, just look for something red, blue. So I love an activity where kids have to be scanning. So can you find anyone that's wearing a blue shirt? Can you find anyone, you know, with red pants? It's just, again, having kids notice their environment and the people in it. I like this too. Look for license plates other than California. You can tell I live here. But just look for, again, like driving. Sometimes we're so bored while driving, giving them an activity where they just have to pay attention for X amount of time. Maybe it's find 4 license plates from a different state. It's another way to just increase attention and get them looking around. Another one I really recommend for families when they're driving is to have kids think of, kids or young adults, like think of 10 foods, think of 10 animals, and then you can expand it. Oh, what's your favorite food? And like, where do you like to go to eat? Because those are questions they might get asked. And sometimes kids get really tripped up. They're like, well, I don't have a favorite food. So we can change it and say like, okay, what are 3 foods you really like to eat? You don't have to tell me your absolute favorite. That's okay. But it's kind of rehearsing that before they're sort of put on the spot with someone else. In the same thought, you know, talking about like, what are things that you like and what are things that you don't like? Again, seems like it should be really obvious, but sometimes kids have really hard time articulating numerous things that they like and don't like. They kind of get stuck in like, I don't know, I like Minecraft and like, I don't really like sports. And then once they kind of box themselves into those two things, it's really hard to be like, oh, you should try this new thing. And they're like, nope, I don't like sports. I'm not doing it. I only like Minecraft. So they won't do other things. And then, like I was saying before, it's just really important as a parent, make mistakes, be silly, own your mistakes, right? We're going to get into that in improv. But again, like so often I have kids who are anxious and kind of perfectionists, and they're so scared they're going to do something wrong. Truth is, we all make mistakes constantly, probably daily we're making a mistake, right? So I do a lot of talking to the students I work with, like, this is the mistake I made today, flat out telling them so they're hearing that someone else is doing that. Okay, any questions really quick, because I realize I'm talking pretty fast and I want to make sure I'm getting through stuff. No, we good? Okay, I'm just going to take a sip of water and I will reopen it. All righty. Let's see. All righty. So a last big part of social thinking is thinking about some idioms that your child might be hearing. So like, hey, hang on, like, let's cool it, chill out, like, give it your best shot. Are you on the ball? Like, wrap it up. I worked with a girl one time that she was like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. But she didn't, like, she was talking about her gym teacher. That's not what she was trying to say. He was like cool, but she didn't understand how this was being used. So literally like asking your kids sometimes, like, do you know what that means? And checking in, because sometimes they might be like, yeah, I know what it means. And then they really might be missing that. I feel like people are moving away from this a little bit, but people used to talk in idioms all the time. My students would be like, I don't know what they're saying. Or like something like chill out. Some of the students I work with hate hearing that. They're like, stop, that makes no sense. Like, how do you want me to chill out? I'm already really stressed out, right? Like, I'm already really frustrated. So talking to them about like, all right, you might dislike the phrase, but what's that person really getting at? Why are they saying that? Is there a different way you want someone to say that to you? And what can you still do in that circumstance? Okay, and so Michelle Garcia Winner, who is the creator of social thinking, she says, before you act and speak socially, you need to be able to think socially. So I just want to say, all of you, thank you for keeping your eyes, your body, and your brain in the group, meaning none of you walked away. You all were looking at me. I could tell you're listening. You were nodding your head, right? So before you even can talk, you have to be able to think and take in the world socially. I think that's really important to think about. And I really like, this is William Glasser is just a famous linguistics researcher, but he talks about how we learn 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, and 70% of what we discuss with others. So again, it is really important to make sure they're seeing it and they're hearing it, but it's also really helpful to have a discussion with someone so they can really integrate it and understand. That's important. Okay, so improv, I don't know if anyone watched The Office. This is Michael from The Office, who apparently improv'd majority of the show. So the reason I like to have social thinking and improv together is I kind of was just talking about you need structure, you're kind of over communicating, you're giving them a lot. And that is all very important. I just also don't want parents to feel like they have to be rigid then and explain everything and never be flexible, because it is really important to be flexible. So improv, right, is the act of improvising, and it's being summarized as being in the moment and responding to unexpected situations in a way that makes use of an individual's strength while also connecting with the world around them. So this is really important, because even if you prep your kid for everything, something unexpected is still going to happen. There's no way you can avoid it. And a lot of the kids I work with, when I first started improv with them, are like, oh my God, you're so annoying. That couldn't actually happen. That's not real. But others, eventually, they kind of give in and they're like, okay, all right, fine. I can get over this. Like, I'll move past this a little bit quicker. So it's just a strategy to help them feel a little bit more relaxed and to feel less rigid. So the way I use improv a lot, we're going to play a game at the end, is like, I'm just silly. I say things that like are just really off base. They don't make sense. And I kind of have them work through the like, oh, that was so dumb with me as opposed to another peer, right? Because again, teachers are going to say things they think are like ridiculous, friends. But if we show how annoyed we are at that person, we might actually lose the friendship. And if we're able to kind of be more flexible and be like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense for them, whatever, and move on, it makes a big difference. So Tina Fey also talks about, and I just really love this, I won't read the whole quote, but like that there are no mistakes, there's only opportunities. So I do talk a lot with my students about mistakes are opportunities, mistakes happen, mistakes are an opportunity to grow, right? I love at the end of this, and many of the world's greatest discoveries have been by accident. Look at the Reese's peanut butter cup or Botox, right? So like just sort of the fact that these things that might annoy our child in the moment are really opportunities for them to either explain why they're annoyed or think of a different solution. You know, all of your kids, I'm sure Ella can agree, they're really good problem solvers when they can get to what the problem is. But a lot of the times they can't really articulate what's going on and why it's so frustrating for them. So it might take a few times of there's a mistake and we need to create a new opportunity to figure out how to work through it. So what are improv games? So they're shared experiences. They facilitate organic moments. They require little to no materials. So I love them. You can infuse them at any time. They're created to be on the fly. They can happen in all environments. They involve problem solving and they provide a structure. So that's the thing. Improv is flexible, but there is a structure within the game you're playing. So that's why a lot of the kids I work with do appreciate that. They're like, okay, they're at least telling me what I have to do. And it also, I really think it does instill a form of self-agency, because improv can be a little scary initially, right? Like you're putting me on the spot and I have to think of these things really quickly. So as my students tend to get better, I do see this like confidence just come through and this self-agency. What I also love about improv is sometimes I'm terrible. Like my brain's not on. I truly am not doing the games amazingly. And I think it's really good for them to see that. It's a nice equalizer of, hey, we're just playing this together. And sometimes I'm not thinking of great things and sometimes you are. So it's showing them again, like people mess up and that's okay. Okay, so what is an improviser's mindset? Really simply, it's the ability to go yes and, which a lot of the students I work with struggle with, right? So like, I don't like Mrs. Roberts because she's always, she always makes us write on the board. So I might go, yes, and she does give you 10 minutes at the end of class to do whatever you want. And you normally end up playing Minecraft, right? So there is this way in which you can not like them in this moment, but there is this yes, and they do this. I do this a lot with kids who are like, I don't like vegetables. I'm like, yes, and they make your body feel better. And when you eat them, you normally get a treat after. Yeah, right. So taking anything and just kind of going, yes, and adding on. It's also a really good skill for all adults, right? I don't want to do this. You could go, yes, but when I finish it, right, I get to reward myself, maybe, however you want to say it. But it's a really good skill for all of us to kind of think like all of our thoughts aren't just one statement. You can always add an and or a but and keep going. Oh, and I know I'm citing a lot. So I don't know if Castle is in Australia. Ella, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, so I think it's because in Australia, you guys have been doing this a lot longer than Americans, so you didn't need a whole collaboration, but it's literally just collaborative for the academic, social, and emotional learning. So we are finally now putting more social and emotional learning in school, and improv is actually a big part of that that's coming around, especially in LA, just because everyone here, you know, Hollywood and improv, but it's in a lot of schools now. So a big core quality of improvisation is flexibility. So it's increasing positive behavior with intentional guidance and it's being open and observant in the moment. And it's okay to say new choice. So sometimes I'll say to kids, like we'll be talking and I've totally had kids throw in potty humor. Like I'm like, okay, everyone tell me their favorite food. And I'll have a kid be like, poop. And instead of being like, no, don't say poop, I'll be like, okay, new choice. And then they might say farts. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, new choice. And then by that point, because I haven't really given them what they're looking for, they might be like pretzels. And you're not shaming them. You're not throwing off the whole group. But I really like new choice. It's just like new choice. Just pick something else. Another thing too with flexibility, I think it's really important for us as parents and educators to show flexibility, right? So let's say, I don't know, you guys had planned a game night for Friday night and you all had really talked about how you wanted to play categories. And then Friday night comes around and your kid really wants to play, Scrabble. I don't know how many kids would really ask to play Scrabble, but let's say they really did. So you could choose to either be like, no, we talked about categories, like we're doing categories, or you could use it as a moment to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm excited that you want to play this game. Let's be flexible and change it up. So just showing flexibility. Another core quality of improv is receptivity. So it's patience to allow individuals to practice the task at hand. And it's trust that the facilitator and a client are partners in the game. So it involves listening, responding, and modeling. So to do a lot of these games, you have to be present and you have to be receptive because you would literally miss the point of the game, right? So one of the games I play is brain melt. And so I have two kids, they go back to back like this, right? And they go 1, 2, 3, brain melt, and they say a word. So let's say they said, I don't know, chocolate, and I'm going to make this really easy on myself, like coffee or something. And so I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to see when you think of the words chocolate and coffee, what word comes to your mind? So they'd have to listen to each other's words. And we go back to back again, and they turn back around and they go brain melt. And then they both might say hot chocolate, because that came to mind when they thought of coffee and chocolate. It never goes that quickly or that fast. But again, they wouldn't be able to do that if they weren't listening to each other. And these are fun, exciting games. I can send some videos maybe after Ella of like some pre-recorded games that might help for people to see. Okay, and then another core quality is adaptation. So it's building off of the strengths of each individual. It's confidence that you're prepared for any situation. Like I was saying, if you get really good at improv, you can kind of adapt and use your imagination. And it's being okay when triggers and symptoms arise and you adjust and respond to those behaviors in a thoughtful way. These are ways to use improv. So let's play a game. So, Ella, I'm putting on the spot. Do you mind modeling a game? I didn't tell her at all. So this was not nice social thinking. I didn't prep her. So Ella, I'm going to give you a present and all you have to do is say thank you and what you would do with it. Okay. And I'm going to intentionally at first give her something I think she might actually want. Okay. So Ella, here is a huge cup of coffee.
Thank you. I'm going to go read a book and drink this cup of coffee.
That sounds lovely. Okay. So now I'm going to give her something I don't think she wants. And she's not going to say, no, that's dumb. I don't like this thing. I won't use it. She's going to say thank you and what she can do with it. Right. So, Ella, here's a bunch of soil.
Thank you. I might go do some gardening.
Perfect, right? So that's a really easy, it's literally called gift giving. I'm going to give you a gift and you have to say thank you and what you do with it. And then your child or student would do it back to you, right? I'll use that at the beginning of a session, or I'll sometimes do it with a parent and a child. It's just a really silly way to get kids acquainted. I will, because I know we're nearing time and stuff, I have some videos of a friend of mine is huge into improv and has created some games around this. So I can send some YouTube videos of it happening so you can kind of see in real time how you would play some of these games. I think that might be helpful. But does anyone have any questions? And Ella, thank you. Any questions? Blanca, I see your question. She's still in here? I don't know if I see her. What
She's
can you
not
do?
here, but she did
Okay.
pop a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what can you do as a parent when you struggle with these activities too? So I'm thinking she might mean with maybe doing improv or pointing stuff out in a video. Honestly, it might be a really good cue to say to yourself, oh, okay, I'm struggling with this. I might need support with it, right? I might need to look at like, why does this feel hard? So when I first started improv, I was extremely self-conscious. I was like anxious. I was uncomfortable. And it really showed me, wow, I don't have that good of a growth mindset. I am terrified of making a mistake. I really don't like being out of control, right? So it might identify some things in you that you might also want to be looking at. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. I don't
Okay.
think you're, oh, there we go.
Yeah. My daughter, she normally is a more, when she in a group, is a social group, she's more observer. She always take herself back, you know,
Mhm.
and she always take a time to warm up to join the group. But when she familiar with people and she like to be a dominant, she want to do things, she want to control, you know, she want to talking, do most of the talking, but I think because she want to talk, she ignore what other people's talking. That make it hard to know to really social to with communicate with other friends. So yeah, that's what it's harder. It's same thing when at home, you know, when she always want to mommy blah 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 blah, and she, excuse me, you got to listen to mommy talk. You know, she just want to talk what she want to do. So I know she's been struggling. She got a lots of friends, which is they're very nice. They're very kind to her, you know. But I think, you know, yeah, for ongoing friendship, she will be struggling because she not listen other people's, you know, just to put her idea, her thoughts to, you know, whatever she want to talking. Yeah, so in this way, what I can do to help her.
Yeah. So you're describing honestly a very, you know, a type of kind of neurodiverse communication, right? Being really, really into your special interest and wanting to share it. But I think what you could help is one, make it so before I've done this before with kids, and I don't know if she would like this. So this would be empty and this is actually full. And I would keep filling this with water until it's actually going to overflow. And a lot of them talk to the point I'm going to fill this. So they can kind of visually see like, whoa, I haven't taken a breath and I'm just talking and talking and talking. Another thing I might do is help her see, like I might even count on my finger how many things she's told me. So a lot of students I work with, I talk to them about the rule of 3. Most people can retain about 3 things, right? So if I tell you what I did on the weekend, I kind of told you what I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you should be able to sort of take that in. But if I told you what I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and who I saw, like that's too much, right? So another way to do that is you could try sort of over explaining something to her and then checking into her with her and being like, did you stop listening? Did you start to get bored? So sort of just letting her know what might happen for another person.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And again, it's not about like shaming or anything of like, you know, you're talking too long or too, it's so much better, like we were seeing before, if they can like experience what it might feel like, or if you can make it visual, because even me, I can't believe I just talked for 56 minutes. That just kind of went by, right? Because I was in the zone. So it would have been hard if someone was like, you talked a lot. I don't even remember what I said, you know, 15 minutes ago, right? So if you can make it visual or you tally in some way, it helps someone see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will try.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Any other questions before we hop off?
Another thing, I'm not sure it's just related to the social, because, you know, actually it's nice, you know, every day when I pick her up at the school, she said, Mommy, answer the question for me. I said, you should ask me what I'm doing at the school. What are my favorite? What am I don't like it? And Mommy, I'll tell you what I'm doing. In the morning, I'm doing this. She's doing every day to me after school. I said, sweetheart, that's great. I try to encourage her talking, which is good, communicate with me. But, she always talking me the timetable. I said, sweetheart, Mommy know your timetable. You just tell me something different. But I think, it's a bit tricky for her. She just stick in the routine, doing things like that.
Yeah, no, so I think she's in a routine that also says to me she wants to be communicating. She's trying. She's just trying to figure out what to do, like how to even communicate still. So what you could do is say to her like, oh, this is what you did. Let's say, she painted a picture today or something. Tell me about what you painted. Tell me what colors you use. Like try to take one thing and just expand it a little bit for her. Yeah, okay. You're breaking up her kind of like listing and trying to make it a little bit more conversational.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, excuse me, sweetheart, just tell Mommy one thing first. Then she said, no, I'm not finished yet. She just kept talking. Then she said, now, Mommy, you can ask a question now. I said, okay. So she just wanted me, like a teacher. Okay, now I finished. You can ask a question.
Yeah, I think how old is she? Can I ask?
She's 11 and 7 months.
Yeah, I think she's still just trying to figure out like how much information I'm supposed to give and how much I'm not. What you could do is make it obvious. Like you could be like, oh, I'm sad because you're not letting me talk. You could make it really apparent, like I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling like I'm not allowed to say anything to sort of show her that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When sometimes we do a little like a social or just like a practice, right? So, okay, we just ask one question, then someone else answer, then others take turns. So when we're doing that, she can do 5 minutes, fine. That's only in that particular conversation. Then afterwards, she won't stick on that. She just continue her ways.
Yeah. I think so, and I will send links. And I am sorry, I have to hop off for my next meeting with a client. But I'll put social thinking links maybe in the PowerPoint when I send it over, so then people just have something because there's so much. I didn't even touch part of it. It's just sort of an introduction into what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope this was actually helpful for everyone and they took something from this and that they remember they can just yes and, right? So whatever you're doing, yes and you can add to that.
Okay.
All right. I hope everyone.
Ellie.
Yeah,
Thank
of course.
you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.